Hey, Kevin Clay here, and this is Painting Lord of the Rings Miniatures for Dummies, which I think I'm very qualified to speak on behalf of the Dummies. And first of all, before we get to painting, there was a really good, actually there are several good resources online about painting these miniatures. One of them repeatedly saying, before you start painting, don't do it. No, seriously, don't do it. And there's some truth to that. So let me tell you what I found. And we'll start with this. If you're going to paint this, you've got to have the right mindset. This is the Zen of painting Lord of the Rings miniatures. If you're painting it because you want to hurry up and get these things painted, have a really cool game, I don't think that's going to be enough motivation for you, because it is a pretty serious undertaking. There's, 213 pieces or something, plus if you do the expansion. What I found, though, I worked on some of them, and I got to that point, it's like, oh, am I ever going to be done? What I found, though, is I gained a little more confidence, though, and got into the groove, so to speak. I learned that I really enjoyed just painting the miniatures part. You don't focus so much on the, I'm going to have a really cool game. See if you can really get into the fact that you're taking a little piece of plastic, red or blue or gray or whatever, and as you're painting, well, look at that, now it's starting to look more like a horse. I like that color there. Or, oh, wow, I got me some bling on my olifants here. Actually, my wife did these, and that's why they look a lot better than the others. But, yeah, if you can get a friend to help you, that's true. But, get these things. Just enjoy the fact that you're doing something creative. Get you some music going that maybe you hadn't listened to in a while. When's the last time you had a chance to just sit down and listen to some good music, or a book on tape, or some kind of instructional audio or something? Get a friend. I've got my friend here, Sherlock the Wonder Dog. Get you someone to keep you company if you can, and just get set to just enjoy the process. And people who are really artistic, which I am not, but they'll tell you that you get into that place where time doesn't exist, because actually the physiological reason, when you're in a creative process, that part of your brain doesn't register time, and that's why the time just zips by, and you'll be looking up and going, wow, it's 11:30 or it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and where did the time go? You can really get into just enjoying creating something. And it's going to take, if you've never done it before, it's going to take a little practice before you kind of get your techniques and realize how things work. But that's the Zen. That's the first part. Realize that you need to develop an appreciation just for making something artistic here, something kind of cool. As I told my wife, something we can hand down to the grandkids. And she pointed out, yeah, they'll probably have all these pieces out in the backyard and be shooting at them with BB guns. But oh well, that's for another time and another place. Now, let's get down to painting these. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible, but there's a lot involved. In fact, as other people have pointed out, you'll probably spend more on your paints and supplies than you did the original game, but then you'll have them for other things. First of all, get one of these guys. You can get these down at the hobby shop, or at least get a good magnifying glass, because don't you look so much more professional when you're wearing one of these, so you can see what's going on. When it comes to painting, sometimes you'll look at the piece, and I'm trying to tell now, is that an arm, or is that one of those, I forget what you call them, a gauntlet, I don't know what you call the arm shield. Now, is that a barefoot, or is that a boot? Get you one of these where you can actually kind of see what you're painting, and that'll help you with those ideas. Get online, as I mentioned, and see other ideas on painting and colors. Now, let's get down to the serious business. So you want to start painting. First thing you do with your pieces is you're going to have to straighten them out. Some of them are going to be crooked on the stands, or their little bows, or their flags, or whatever are going to be crooked. Way to do that, do not use boiling water. It turns out that this plastic gets soft pretty quickly in warm water. I took a Keurig, and so the water's not boiling, but it is hot. Put it in a coffee cup, and then you just dip in the part that needs straightening. You don't have to do the whole thing. And once again, don't just drop your pieces in boiling water, or you might end up with just globs of plastic, and that'd be bad. Realize you don't have to soften the whole thing, just the part that needs straightening. If your guy is crooked on a stand, it's really just the ankles that you're going to need to soften. Dip it down in that hot water, take that, straighten it, and then immediately dip it in a little bowl or a cup of ice water. And it hardens just like that. And so that's the easiest way to do it. Straighten them all out, get your X-Acto knife, go through and cut off all the excess flash. Now, so you've got that taken care of. That's step one. Now, if you ignore these first steps, it's going to cause problems later on. You're going to go, oh, I wish I'd have just put that little extra time. So straighten them out. Next part is get your toothbrush, because you don't want your bad breath to melt the plastic. No, that's not it. Get your toothbrush, because it's time to clean these now. As has been pointed out in other videos and online tutorials about painting, there's a substance on this. It's kind of an oily substance that helps these release from the mold when they're made at the factory. So you'll take these and you'll need to wash them. I just filled the sink with some warm soapy water. I say filled, about that much, enough to cover the pieces. Put them in there. Get them nice and warm and soapy. Get your toothbrush, get in all the little grooves, and then rinse them off and put them on. I just used a big beach towel. So yeah, it's once again a time-consuming deal, but once you have some music going in the background or talk to a friend or something. So now you've got them cleaned. While you're washing, now you don't want to wash oils off to get oils on from your finger. If you've got some of these latex gloves, these are pretty cheap, or at least make sure your hands are clean so you don't get the excess oil on these, which keeps the paint from sticking. Paint from sticking, why, that brings us up to our next step, and that would be priming. And there's different schools of thought on that. You've got the black primer school of thought, you've got the gray primer school of thought, and you've got the white primer school of thought. So here's what I found. First, I started out with the black, and there's a lot of good reason for using black. The theory is, or the thinking is, that you spray black on, especially if you got a lot of bad guy pieces anyway that have black. And for one, the black parts are already painted for you. Number two is that even as you're painting different colors on, you might miss a spot here or there. There might be a part that's hard to get to. And black basically will look like shadows. And so it not stand out and not look like you just missed a bunch of places. It'll look like, oh, that's very artistic. It's a shadow in there. The gray, well, let me first of all talk about my experience with the black. This is just Krylon indoor-outdoor flat black, just paint. And using this, I found it seemed like it took forever to dry. Now, it says on here, dries in 10 minutes or less. 10 days, and this stuff still hadn't dried. And yeah, why? Because people point out I put too much on. And this is a real common problem. Because you put on a light coat, and you look and go, well, that hasn't covered it very well. So you put on another coat, well, oh, that looks better, but now for some reason it just takes forever to dry on that plastic. Now, I did have some that I just let sit forever, and they finally got dry enough that even if they're still a little bit tacky, when you paint over them, they do okay. But here's what I found, and here's what I would do if I had it to do all over again. I switched on some of my pieces. I thought, well, I'm going to try this gray. It's actual primer, Krylon indoor-outdoor primer, 25% bonus, thank you. And when I put this on, it seemed like this actually did dry in 10 minutes. Was just a whole lot easier to work with. And it's still dark enough that if you miss a spot here and there, you've got, it's dark enough that it still gives you that shadow effect. The other thing I found is I didn't have to put as many coats of paint on over this. Now here's the other thing, when you start painting, you're going to need to do probably 3 coats on most of the parts, especially if you're doing a big area like the white of the horses, or if you're doing gray on the Nazgul or whatever. Because this is lighter, I didn't have to put on quite as many coats to overcome that dark, dull factor. So if I had to do it over again, me personally, you do whatever you want, I would go for this Krylon Gray Primer. It just dried so much more quickly and was so much easier to paint. So anyway, so let's get to that. So now we've got them primed in black or gray or white, whatever you like best. Got them primed. Now let's get down to the painting. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Before we do that, let's fix the big mess that we made when you put on too much black primer like I did. Once again, this is for dummies. Now, I'm hoping most of you won't do this, but if you do that, how do you overcome that? Thank you to whoever it was who pointed this out online. This stuff, LA Totally Awesome, which it is. I just do a web search for it, LA Totally, is it right? LA's Totally Awesome. I picked this up at one of the Dollar General or something like that, dollar store. If you mess up your pieces, which I did, and it's like they're never drying, get my other big tool out here, a plastic bucket. I put my pieces in the bucket, I covered them with this Totally Awesome, let it sit for just one day, went out the next morning and gave it a little swoosh, and the pieces were just pristine. All of the primer, that black paint, was off the pieces, and yet the pieces were fine. They weren't damaged at all, so it did a great job of melting the paint away without melting the plastic. So get you some of that LA, I know it sounds like a commercial, get LA Totally Awesome as seen on TV, and that'll help you out if you do end up getting too much of that black on your pieces that never seems to dry. And then you can start over. And mine I actually did, and I just put a lighter coat of black, and that worked a lot better. But I'm telling you, the gray is what I'm really sold on now. Okay, now we're finally down to painting the pieces. Now what do we need? Where'd my other, oh, here it is. This stuff's good. You'll need some paints, and there's a different kind. I'll get to this in a minute. What is this, Apple Barrel? Just pick this up down at the local, your Hobby Lobby or Michael's or whatever you have the equivalent of that where you are. It's just cheap paint. If you use this stuff, for the most part, you are going to have to thin it. This stuff's pretty thick. That's where this stuff comes in. It used to be called Pledge Future. Now it's just Pledge Floor Care. Who knows what it'll be called by the time you get to it. The thing you look for is, though, on the back, it's got this long-lasting shine and acrylic protection. These are acrylic paints, and this is just clear acrylic. So to thin it down, this stuff works great. Also works great as a good brush cleaner. I'd keep this in a little jar to clean the brushes with. So this is just another cool little tip, inside trick to have. Okay, back to our paints now. Now we got the paint here. Another good guy to have is this thing right here. And if you can see that, there we go. So you can drop your little bits of paint in and then put a drop of your thinner to get it to the consistency you like. Also, it's good for mixing paints in. Now, if you don't want to have to go and buy one of those, even though these are cheap, I think this is like 69 cents at Walmart. A styrofoam plate works pretty good too, especially if you've just got a little bit of a color that you're going to use. You're not going to use a whole lot. You can put a drop on here and then use that, and then you can throw this away when you're done. Or if you're not into the styrofoam for environmental reasons, the waxed paper plates with the wax type coating do well too. Don't use Chinette, it soaks up the stuff. So yeah, I told you this was for dummies, and I've done all the dumb things already for you, so I'm trying to help you out. But yeah, get one of these guys. And then at the end of the day, if you need to clean it out, put LA Totally Awesome in there, let it sit overnight. In the morning, you can clean that out. But this is really good for putting your paint in. So that's now we're pretty much up to the painting part. Here's the other tip, what I really like. Although the cheap paints are good, but you do have to thin them a bit. My friend Daryl at the hobby shop I go to gave me some great tips on these. Now, this is a little more expensive, this Game Color and this Vallejo Model Color. The good thing about these is that they're already to the consistency that you shouldn't have to thin them. You'll find out once you get to use them. I mean, if they're all globbing up and filling in all of the recesses instead of coating them, then you know you need to add a little bit of that, where'd it go? My Pledge acrylic here, to thin it up a bit. But these guys really work good. The other little tip that I learned when I was filling with them, and once again, just personal preference, but bling is king. I love these metallic paints. I've got some, what is this? I got some glorious gold. I got some, I think this is my polished gold here. The bronzes, the coppers. One thing, the shiny stuff detracts from all the places where you messed up. So anyway, those are my tips for you. Oh, as far as brushes, you will need brushes also. Let me say this. If you get these kind of brushes, you know, they come in nice little packs. Oh, you're just going to be in a world of misery, because how are you going to paint detail on these guys? You see the problem there. Okay. You're going to need some small brushes, and you may have to spend a little bit on them. I think I've got some 25... Oh, there's some little tiny ones. 25 zeros, some 000, some 10 zeros. If you've got a good hobby shop to go to, they can help you out with that. But basically, you can just look at your piece and say, well, if I'm going to do this kind of detail on it, I'm going to need a brush small enough to put the detail, and then a little bit bigger brush for the larger areas that you're going to do the horses, or whatever, the oliphants that have a lot of just one particular color. Now, as far as the painting techniques themselves, a lot of experts out there. One thing that I found that helped me kind of keep my sanity when I was looking at the pieces, first of all, know what color you're going to do before you start painting. I made that mistake of thinking, well, I'll try this, and it didn't work. But you just paint over it, and so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, go online and look and see how other people have painted miniatures, or, of course, best of all, in my opinion, is get stills from the movies and see. I mean, those guys spent a lot of money in design, and look at that and see what they did. And then, you can experiment with things like inks or washes or dry brushes, where, if you don't have a lot of detail. Well, here's a good example. This is from the expansion here. You've got Gandalf. He's wearing white clothes on a white horse. And so what I did there was take just a little black, a very thin, really thinned up my black paint, where it basically just looks like kind of black water. And you get it in there, and then it goes down into the crevices without so much coloring the rest of the piece there. So it kind of brings out that definition. The other thing, too, while you're doing your pieces, once again, don't, because I mentioned looking at other people's pieces online, don't worry about comparing your pieces to what the real experts and pros did. I mean, now, if you're wanting to shoot for that, that's fine. But once again, this is the painting for dummies here, okay? And you can get really discouraged, especially when you look and see these other guys' close-up photos, and everything is just perfect and excellent. The thing to remember, at least in my opinion, is, look, it's a cool game. And these are just pieces. These aren't going in the Louvre. They're not going, for display in a museum. These are just for your enjoyment. So you paint them how you like them. You paint them your colors. If you think the elves need to be maroon and white for your Aggie football team, or whatever, it's your game. But don't worry about other people. Do this and realize that, hey, this is going to look pretty cool. And most people are going to look at the game like this. You see that? They're not going to be grabbing these and examining each piece and, oh yes, I think you missed a leaf on the tree of Gondor there. Oh, I say, how disgusting. That's not going to be the case. People are just going to look and go, wow, that's pretty neat. So don't get so wrought up about having to get everything perfect, especially if, like me, this is your first time. Just enjoy it, and you will find you improve as time goes on. So those are most of the tips that I can remember. If I've just left something out, you think, have another question, feel free to get in contact with me, and I'd love to chit-chat with you. And just enjoy it, enjoy the process, spend some time with if you can find a friend or a wife like I did who can help you, especially if you've got a friend who's a much better painter than you are, then do that and just have fun with this. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful.